Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Project Control Mastery. My name is GHORBANI. I'm the founder and director of Project Control Academy, where we help you how you can master your skills in project controls. You know, I get this question a lot. What is the difference between project control and project management? So I decided to put together this training for you so I can provide you the exact difference between these two functions, project control and project management. But I'm wondering, is that your question too? Are you wondering if project control is the same as project management? Do you think project control is about controlling the quality of a project? Do you think project control is about controlling and managing the people in a project? Well, the answer is a big fat no. Project control is not the same as project management. It's not about controlling the quality, and it's not about controlling and managing people in a project. So you may be wondering, so if project control is not either of those, what project control is all about? What does project control controls in a project? To answer your question, project control controls two primary factors in a project. One is cost and another one is schedule. So basically a project controller would answer two key questions in a project. How much the project is going to cost, and whether or not we're going to finish on budget or not, and how long the project is going to take, and where we are now in our project, and are we going to finish on time or not, and if not, what we can do about it. So that's basically it. That's what a project controller does, manages cost and schedule in a project. So let's see what a project manager does in a project. I like this definition from Wikipedia about project management, and it says project management is the discipline of initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling and closing of the work of a team to achieve specific goals and meet specific success criteria. So if project management is about initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling and closing in a project, then where do you think the project control role exists in this cycle? Is it about monitoring and controlling phase of a project? So this is a very common misconception about project control, because there is a control word in front of project control. Basically, it has control word in it. People might think that project control is only about controlling and managing a project, basically involvement in monitoring and controlling stage of a project. But the reality is, to have a successful project control implementation on the project control team needs to be involved on the project from the initiation stage all the way to the closeout stage. You might be wondering why project control needs to be involved early on in the project, in the initiation stage, for example. When you put together a proposal at the initiation stage of a project, don't you need to come up with an estimated overall budget on how much this project is going to cost, and what is the high-level delivery schedule for your project? And who is in charge of the cost and schedule of a project? Yes, a project controller. So project controller needs to be involved early on the project from the initiation stage when you put together a proposal. And as you start a project in a planning stage, the project controller helps you with the planning of the cost and schedule portion of the project. And as the project goes through its life cycle, then the project controller again gets involved in different aspects of cost and schedule management in the project. So basically, project control would have a heavy involvement throughout the whole project life cycle. So with that, you might be thinking, okay, then what's the difference between a project controller and project manager? It goes back to the definition of the role of a project controller that really defines two primary factors in a project: cost and schedule. And did you know that one of the primary roles of a project manager is managing the constraints in a project to achieve the end result and the objective of a project? And do you know what those primary constraints are in a project? Yes, the primary constraints are scope, cost, time, and quality. So this is one of the challenges of a project manager, to create a balance between those constraints in a project. And guess who is there to help a project manager to manage the cost and time element of a project? Yes, a project controller. If you are not yet convinced about the difference between the project management and project control, let me give you a simple analogy so you can relate to. If you consider a project as a ship, the role of a project manager in the project is like a captain of a ship, leading the whole ship toward its final destination that is determined by the project owner. So with that, what do you think the role of a project controller would be in a ship? Yes, the project controller would act similar to a navigating officer in a ship. Just like a navigating officer who keep control of the course, speed of the ship, and the variation of the ship, where it's going and where it's heading to. The same thing project controller does in a project. The project controller keep looking an eye on cost and schedule portion of the project. Make sure, first of all, they come up with a plan on how they're going to carry on the ship to the final destination. So first they come up with a plan, they come up with a roadmap, and then as they start their journey, they start measuring where they are in their course of their journey and how much they're deviating from their plan. And again, I'm just talking about cost and schedule. The only portion of the project scope that they are looking at, the project controller is looking at, is cost and schedule. So they come up with a plan for the cost, they come up with a plan for the schedule, and throughout the course of the project, they make sure that they manage and control these two elements. And if there is any deviation, they advise the project team members on what they can do, and they come up with a recovery plan. So the same thing, just similar to the navigation officer in a project. So to be again more clear on the distinction between project management and project control, let me show you an organization chart where you will see in projects where the project controller stands as compared to a project manager. This is a typical organization chart for an EPC project, engineering, procurement, construction project, where you see project manager on the top and you see different teams underneath the project, underneath project management. For example, you will have HSE manager, QA/QC manager, construction manager, and one of those boxes is project control manager. And by the way, you will have their own team of people under each box. For example, if you have technical engineering manager here shown on as a box, you will have different boxes underneath that. For example, it might have electrical engineer, process engineer, instrumentation engineer, and so on. So they will have their own team underneath that. I haven't shown that because I just wanted to show you the difference between project control and project management. Going back to the technical manager here, let's say electrical engineer as part of the team, their main concern is about the design and control the scope of the electrical portion of the project. But when we are talking about project control, again, their scope is just cost and schedule. So depending on the responsibility of each of those people in the job, they have in the project, they have different positions in the overall project. And for project control, depending on the size of the project, they might have their own team underneath the project control manager. And normally you might see cost estimator, cost controller, planner, schedulers, and for some companies they might have document control also under project controls. But depending on the project, for example, if you have a big major project, you might see a lot of people working here underneath the project control manager. If there's a small project, then one or two people or just one people might undertake the role of many of those people here on a small project. But the bottom line is the project control team would report directly to the project manager. And although the org chart shows this way, the way that the project control function works is the project control team interacts directly with all the other team members because they need to get the information from them. let me show you how the project control function in the project control team works. This is basically the interaction of the project control team with all the project team leads. They get the information from technical team leads, they get the information from procurement, construction, project manager, vendors, subcontractors, client, finance department, and you name it. So project control, because they take control of the entire cost and schedule of the project, they need to know, the electrical engineer, how much they're going to have their budget and how they're performing against that budget and how they're delivering their key milestones and their key deliverables. So they keep the control and management of the cost and schedule portion of the entire project, and for doing that they need the integration and interaction with all the team members basically. And one of the key inputs of project controllers, they get the information from the team members, and one of the first key outputs of a project control team is the project plan. And this is critical because without having a plan, you don't know where you are in a project. So one of the key items that they develop and they help the project manager to develop too is coming up with the project plans, specifically cost and schedule. They come up with the schedule and the cost expenditure planning, and they come up with a plan for the project, the resource allocation, and a lot of other planning, work breakdown structure, cost breakdown structure. They do a lot of planning up front for the project, again on the cost and schedule portion of the project. And then as the project goes through its course of execution, they develop cost and schedule status and inform the team on how they are doing in terms of the cost and schedule performance and where the project is, and also where the project is heading to. So another thing that the project control team is working on is forecasting and where we are heading to in the project in terms of cost and schedule. And if there is any issue, or if there is any problem or deviation, what are those issues and how we can recover from those. And although these arrows shows one way, in reality there are two ways, because project control team get that information from the team members and then communicate them back and reflect them back to the team, especially project manager, to come up with the right decision for the project. So this is very in a nutshell what the project control function does. If you want to learn more about how project control controls a project, make sure you watch another episode that we have put together under Project Control Mastery. So you check that video and learn more about really how project controller controls a project. Now, to summarize, there are three key differences between the project management and project controller. As you have realized through these slides already, one of the key differences is that project control is a subset of project management. So obviously it's not project management, it's just a function under project management, and I would like to call it a subset of project management. And as I mentioned earlier, the scope of project control is cost and schedule. So the project cost and schedule is the scope of project control. So that's what the project controller controls in a project. Another key difference between the project manager and a project controller is that project manager is directing the project team, but the project controller acts as an advisor in the project, coming up with recommendations and solutions to bring the project back on track in terms of cost and schedule. So provide suggestions, information, graphs, data that shows where the project is and where the project is heading to and what we can do about the project. So it just acts as an advisor. It doesn't, the project controller doesn't tell the project team members what to do. He or she just advises them of the solution or come up with a solution together with the project team members. Another key difference between the project management and project controller is that project controller generates a lot of information for the team. They are great in producing reports for the team, but the project manager consumes that information and make a decision for the project. So project controller is not in a position of making the decision for the project. He or she provide that information to the project manager and the team, and based on that information provided and based on his or her suggestions, then the project manager come up with a decision for the project. So these are the three key differences that you will see between the project control functions and the project management function. If you have any question, make sure that you post your questions or comments down below. I would be glad to assist you and answer your questions. And if you like this training, make sure that you hit the like button and you share it with the group of your friends or colleagues. Until next time, with another episode of Project Control Mastery Training, do your best in everything that you do and make a difference.